Okay, we're back. We usually don't have internet connections here, but something strange is going on this morning. Sorry for that disconnect. Picking up where we left off, consider this body. It's made of mucus, blood, stool, pus, urine with hairs on the head. We're back with you, Joe, Thomas. And this body's destination, when you think about it, if you're Christian, will be buried, returned back to earth. If you're Hindu, the body will be burned, cremated, turned to ash. And some cultures believe that the body should serve a purpose. There are vultures and scavengers, maggots, and so on and so forth, that they also have to be fed. So by nature's arrangement, our bodies can be food for worms and scavengers and vultures. Therefore, in some cultures, the body is neither buried nor burned, but it's just left out in the jungle to be consumed and to provide subsistence to the scavengers. Now, considering that the ultimate destination of this body is either as worms or as stool or as ashes, why would one jeopardize one's future by causing suffering and pain to other living beings? How could that possibly be in one's own self-interest? If you at all believe in the law of cause and effect, and the law of cause and effect has certainly proven itself to be practically applicable when we apply it to diseases like polio, like yellow fever, scarlet fever, and smallpox. The elimination of all these diseases in the modern age is because of the application of the law of cause and effect. Remove the cause and you also eliminate the effect. Now, using that same principle, if our suffering, if the quality of your life suffers, then what would be the cause of that? And according to the law of what goes around and comes around, the cause of your suffering in the here and now is the suffering that you've perpetuated on other living beings. And I say living beings. I don't just mean human beings. I don't just mean people, cool people like you that live in your neighborhood. No, pain is pain. Whether you feel pain in the body of an African or a Chinese or an American or a black. Now we have our Black Lives Matter. Not that life is black. The soul itself is transcendent and translucent. But all lives matter. If Black Lives Matter equal to White Lives Matter, then Yellow Lives Matter and Red Lives Matter and Llama Lives Matter and Cow Lives Matter and chicken. So be consistent. Don't just extend it a little bit. Okay, here's my set of cool people, but now we're going to decide to extend our graciousness, our mercy, a tad to include black lives. No, be consistent, be expansive, do what God does. See with a God-like vision that wherever there's life, it's precious. Wherever there's life, it's a particle of God. And learn to respect life in all and any of its forms. The great humanitarian and Nobel Prize winner Albert Schweitzer, I believe Nobel Prize winner, said, when you lose respect for any part of life, it's only a matter of time before you lose respect for all of life. So in case you missed it when our broadcast was interrupted, Kamsa's wives saw his dead body and they addressed him with these words. Once again, Kamsa was the tyrant who tried to kill Krishna, who, failing to identify Krishna, killed all the firstborn babies who were born at the same time as Krishna. Finally, at the age of 16, Krishna went to Mathura and killed Kamsa. So his wives said to him, "Oh, dear one, you have been brought to this state because of the terrible violence you committed against innocent creatures. How can one who harms others attain happiness?" Indeed, that's our message today. What goes around comes around. You cause harm, you receive harm. If you want to improve the quality of your life, take inventory at what you're giving out. And if you improve and relate to other living beings with more love, with more sensitivity, with more consideration, with more compassion. It won't happen overnight, but you will have turned a corner in your life. Sooner or later, because of the better seeds that you're sowing now, you're going to reap better results in the future. So even though nothing changes overnight, still, if you start treating other living beings, and the biggest step you can take towards this is becoming a vegetarian and not putting cruelty on your plate, you will be planting much better seeds, and in due course of time, the quality of your life will experience a great change for the better. One such person who thrived on the misery of others, sort of a brother in arms to Kamsa, was Hiranyakashipu. He was the father of the great boy devotee Prahlad Maharaj. The fact that his son constantly chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And not only was a vegetarian, obviously in the palace where everybody else ate meat, but he offered his food to Krishna first. This infuriated Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, because like Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu's lifestyle thrived upon and depended upon causing misery to others, exploitation, domination. Oh, Hiranyakashipu ranted and raved at his son. You need to go with the flow. You're born in a race of demons. You're a demon. Don't try to get above yourself. Don't be too big for your britches. You are from the seed from my loins. You need to be a chip off the block. You need to give up these non-violent theistic ways and act according to your birthright and your genes. Prahlad was having none of it, even though he was being confronted and threatened and loomed over by this extremely muscular, powerful practitioner of the black arts. Prahlad was only a defenseless 5-year-old boy. He still felt confident because he was right in the middle of what God wanted him to do with his life. And so, without giving an inch, without batting an eyelid, Prahlad went right back to his father and said, Jahi ashram imam tom atmana samo mana datsvam nashantin vibhivisham ritejitad atminut patishtide taddihi anantasya mahat samaranam. Giving back to his father as good as he got, Prahlad Maharaj says, my dear father, it's not I who need to change, but I don't need to give up my theistic, loving, non-violent, friendly, compassionate, sensitive nature. No, that's what we all need to aspire for. So it is rather you who need to give up your penchant for subsisting on the pain and suffering of others. Father, please, Jahi Asharam Bhavam, give up your demoniac consciousness. Do not discriminate, samo mano datsvam, in materialistic consciousness, especially in the modes of passion and ignorance. Calculations constantly run through your mind. Friend, enemy, neutral party, enemy, friend, neutral party, friend, enemy. Based on whether another living being promotes your sense gratification, opposes your sense gratification, or if you can't decide whether they're going to promote it or impede it, then they're neutral parties for the time being until you can make a determination. These calculations are going on constantly. Can you imagine how agitated the mind of someone in the modes of passion and ignorance is? Always trying to determine whether one is a friend or an enemy or neutral party, and that dictates how one interacts with that personality. So Prahlad beseeches, wanting the best for his father, recognizing that his father is, after all, suffering greatly, though his father doesn't recognize it, and like the expert physician, pinpointing that the cause of his father's suffering is the suffering that his father perpetrates on other living beings. He says to him, do not discriminate in your heart between enemies and friends. Make your mind samo mano datsva, equipoise towards everyone. Except, and this is a powerful statement, except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. When one sees everyone on the platform of equality, then one comes to the position of worshiping the Lord perfectly. There's a huge difference between acting in the modes of passion and ignorance, and causing suffering, being inconsiderate to other living beings, and being in the mode of goodness. Persons in the mode of goodness are invariably vegans or vegetarian. That means their karmic burden is reduced by factors of thousands and thousands of times. When you're eating from plant-based food sources, the killing is reduced almost to nothing. But when you're eating from flesh-based sources, when you're taking the lives of highly evolved vertebrates who have a completely developed nervous system, who scream and bleed and suffer and cry out in agony at the time of death, that's what you're eating. That violence you're taking in, and that violence is now, guess what, become a part of your life. So if one wants to increase the quality of one's life immensely, then get in the mode of goodness, stop eating the flesh of other living beings, take from your plant-based food sources, your nutrition. That will reduce the karmic debt immeasurably, immeasurably. But that's not enough. From the mode of goodness, one then must go a step higher. You have to offer your food to Krishna. In the mode of goodness, one doesn't cause bloodshed, violence per se. When you eat an apple, you don't kill the tree. When you milk a cow, the cow doesn't fall over dead. When you harvest wheat, it's not when it's green, it's when it's brown. That means the life force has left the wheat, and there's a window called harvest time when we can take that produce and get full nutrition by consuming it. Well, basically, a vegetarian reduces the violence in his or her life to almost nil. Now, I don't say nil, but I say almost nil, because there are certain cases, like baby carrots. You ate them, you cut them down in their infancy, you didn't allow them to reach maturity. Imagine what that baby carrot could have become if he had allowed to develop into a full-fledged carrot. What those sprouts would have become if they had been planted and cultivated. So for argument's sake, yes, plants are sentient, plants feel pain, and some of the food stuff that we eat as a vegan or vegetarian still has a sensibility and still feels pain. Therefore, although your karmic debt is reduced incalculably by eliminating meat, fish, and poultry from your diet, still it's not eliminated altogether. There still is a scintilla of karmic which is generated. Krishna says, Isan bogan hibo deva dasanti yagabhavitam. Any food intake which is for one's own personal sense gratification, that's going to carry with it some measure of accountability, some measure of karmic reaction. Not much compared to shedding blood, but your karma is still there. It's not totally guilt-free. So it is said that devotees who are transcendental to the mode of goodness do harm to no living being. Can be said of someone in the mode of goodness, they hardly do harm to any living being. But it cannot be said they don't do any harm to any living being. Well, someone says, well, true, you have to subsist. The law of subsistence is that one living being is food for another. And certainly a major step in the right direction is to subsist on plant-based foods. That's our anatomy, our temperament. Everything about us indicates we're not a carnivore. We're a herbivore. Our teeth, our digestive system, we won't get into that right now, maybe another day. But our anatomy indicates that God created us as herbivores. So Caru, even though you're a devotee, you eat 2-3 times a day. You eat the same vegetable fare, vegan fare that someone in the mode of goodness eats. How can it be said, how can you stand on your high horse and say that vegans and vegetarians are still getting some shred of karma and you're not? Because you're eating basically the same things they are. Everything that you said is true. But there's one element that makes all the difference in the world. We don't eat food, even vegetarian, vegan food, for our own personal sense gratification. We offer to Krishna first, according to his prescription in the 9th chapter, 30th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna has a convent. He has a deal worked out for us that, okay, you have to subsist. And the healthiest, most non-violent, karma-free way of subsisting is on fruits and vegetables and grains. But there's still some shred of karma. Therefore, Krishna says, Patram pushpam phalam te yo me bhakta priyajati tadashama pariya ashnami pariyatatmana. Take those fruits, grains, and vegetables, same foods that a vegetarian and vegan eats, and put them on a plate, and before you consume them, offer them to me. And in fact, backtracking, if you can grow your own food on your own land, plant it, weed it, nourish it, harvest it, cut it up, cook it. If you can do all of that prior to the eating of it as an offering to Krishna, Krishna says you'll be karma-free. You'll be karma-free. Not only that, but the whole process is a meditation. It's a yogic meditation from the time you plant the seeds to the time you offer the food to the Lord to the time you consume it. And you're not consuming anything that is laden with karma. In fact, there are two different words for vegetarian vegan food: before it's offered and after it's offered. Before it's offered, it's called bhog. Ishtan bhogan hi bodeva dasanti yagabhavita. After it's offered, and Krishna, by Krishna's arrangement, because Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer, because everything is grown and prepared and cooked and offered with the ultimate enjoyment of Krishna or God in mind, there is no karma. Whatever karma there might be, Krishna makes a deal that he absorbs that karma. So then the next question is, what about the soul in the body of that fruit or vegetable or plant? Have you not done harm to that soul, the baby carrot, the sprout? Well, of course, he is divorced from his body. There's no arguing that point. However, a soul in a lower plant form of life normally would have to undergo many, many births and deaths. Every time he dies, he goes a little step higher, a little step higher. Birth, death, little step higher, little step higher. But I think it's safe to say that from a plant form to elevating oneself, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, to a human form, which is the most rare and valuable form, it's going to take a long time, hundreds if not thousands of births and deaths. However, by virtue of being incorporated into an offering by a devotee for the satisfaction of the Lord, it is stated that that soul leapfrogs over all the intervening species of life, gets human birth next time around. Therefore, only the devotees who offer their food to Krishna, only they can be said to cause no harm to any living beings. Not only that, but they do a positive good even to the spirit souls in the lower forms of plants, fruits, and grains. This is called Visuddha Sattva, or even transcendental of the mode of goodness. Prabhupada says a devotee is always qualified with all the same good, considerate, compassionate, loving qualities as God from whom he comes. Why does a devotee reflect the qualities of God? Because we're created from God. We have the same qualities as he does. And in the process of serving the Lord and chanting his holy names and eating purified food, any dust or dirt which has been in our heart and any separation that's been created from God through our association with matter is removed. And to the degree that you remove the contaminations which are generated from contact with material nature, you regain automatically, without any separate endeavor, without any separate self-help or self-improvement programs, simply by the process of purification through Krishna consciousness, one reflects, regains, rekindles those godly qualities, those godly virtues. No other separate endeavor is required. Quantitatively, such qualifications may be different from God's, but qualitatively, both the Lord and his devotee are simply one and the same. Here's a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Mad karma kreen, this is the 11th chapter, 55th verse. Mad karma kreen mad paramo, mad bhakta sangavarjita, nirvarir sarvabhutishu ya samam iti pandava. Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living entity, he certainly comes to me. Now, this is a qualification. Krishna is listing the qualifications which make one eligible to finish up his cycles of birth, death, disease, and old age in this material world, which have been going on for a very long time already, and going back to home, back to God. Now, one of the qualifications is that he's friendly to all living beings. And that means, doesn't matter, you go to church, you tithe, you know scripture, you have all the trappings of piety, but you sit down to eat the flesh of an innocent animal 2-3 times a day. I wish it weren't true for you, but you cannot climb to heaven on the slaughtered bodies of animals. And I mean, after all, American Heart Association, American Medical Association, American Cancer Association, they're all unanimous in saying that the less flesh you eat, the healthier it is for you. So eating a plant-based diet is optimally healthy for you. It's obviously optimally healthy for the animals. It's optimally healthy for the planet. So if you're going to oppose me, if you're going to argue with me, you're arguing in favor of your own poor health. You're arguing in favor of cruelty and unnecessary suffering to your brothers and sisters under God. And you're arguing in favor of polluting and contaminating and trashing the planet which God gave to you. So my plea to you is, my hope for you is, that you're not so foolish as to argue and come at us from a position of ignorance and passion, tamagun and rajagun. My hope for you is, at the very least, you'll see the light, feel some compassion for other living beings, and rise to the mode of goodness. A devotee situated in Krishna consciousness knows that only devotional service to Krishna can relieve a person from all the problems of life. In the 7th canto, there's a conversation between Narada Muni and the pious, righteous King Yudhisthira, the head of the 5 Pandava brothers. This is in Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th chapter, 14th verse. Mrigashta karamarkaku sarishap kagamakshita atmanam putavad prasad terisham antaram kiyat. Narada Muni says to Yudhisthira, one should treat animals such as deer, camels, asses, monkeys, mice, birds, and flies exactly like one's own son. In fact, it is said, Atmavat putravad prajat. Putra means children. It means your sons. It says, Atmavat putravad prajat tere shamantaram kriyam. Narada Muni says, how little difference there actually is between children and these innocent animals. Those of you who are parents, you see this every day. The children spend hours and hours and hours down on the floor, or out in the yard with the cats and the dogs and the chinchillas and the guinea pigs. Because what difference is there between the children and the animals? Of course, the children, as they mature, they will become more intellectually acute. Their physical body will become more graceful. But at least as children, there's no difference between them, their consciousness, and that of the animals. There's a lot more potential for a child, but if that child preys upon and continues to eat animals, even after having reached physical maturity, I really question whether the consciousness has matured along with the body. I think one is still stuck, retarded, back into the animal type of consciousness. Now, just by chanting Hare Krishna and eating sanctified food after it's been offered to the Lord, just by controlling the tongue and the two important functions of the tongue, which are vibrating and eating, one comes to the level of not doing any harm to any living being, even the ants. Sukadeva Goswami, the great saint, he said to Maharaj Parikshit, if I can just find it here, he said to Maharaj Parikshit, Yashasti Bhaktir Bhagavatiya Kenchana Sarva Gunastata Shamasti Sara Haro Bhaktasya Kuto Mahadgana Manavada Tinashati Dahavato Bahi. It says, all the demigods and their exalted qualities such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva. On the other hand, one devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? Notice it is said that his intelligence, manoratina shati dahavotabahi, rather than having an intelligence which is fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord, an intelligence which resonates with that of the Supreme Father who created, who loves every living being. Krishna is described in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Suridam Sarvabhutanam. God is the best friend. He's the best well-wisher of all living entities. He created them. We're all his sons and fathers, and devotees resonate and represent the Lord. So far, he is kind and compassionate upon all living beings. Lacking devotional service, any so-called compassion or deference that you have to other living beings is coming from the mental platform. Talk to so many people, well, I tried veganism, or I tried vegetarianism, or I thought it would be good for my health for a certain period of time, but when the doctor told me I was lacking in vitamin B or some other bogus analysis. Only those who are doing what they do out of devotion and service to the Lord are going to be fixed, and they're not going to be distracted or talked down from a lifestyle of regard, of compassion. And now just a word about what we mentioned earlier, the offering process. Someone might object, well, why does God need food? God doesn't need food. He doesn't come down and chew the offerings that you make to him. But he blesses them by seeing them and by hearing the prayers. He tastes those offerings in his own way, and he extracts any karmic reactions from those offerings, leaving what we call the remnants of sacrifice. Yagyasista stino santa munchate sarva kilbashihi bunjate te tuagam papam ye pachanti admakaranam. Says, one who eats only food which is offered and purified and consecrated by the Lord, only such a one, sarva munchate kilbashi, is free from all entanglement, is free from all karmic reactions. And not only are you free, but you're doing a positive service again to the living entities who are incorporated in that offering. So the first step is get free from the lower modes of material nature and gradually even transcend the mode of goodness. In the Bhagavad Gita 2nd chapter, 45th verse, it is said, Tragunya Vishal Veda. This is like poison, to be contact as an eternal spirit soul, to be exposed to and affected and contaminated by passion and ignorance, and even to some degree, goodness is unwanted. And therefore, Krishna encourages, he's giving a pep talk to Arjuna, and through Arjuna to all of us. Trigunya, Vishaya Veda, Nisjaguna Bhavarjana, Nirdvanvo Nityasatyasho, Niryagasemavadmavam. Nirdvanvo means illusion. He says, rise above the modes of material nature and therefore transcend the tendency to see duality and to be illusion. All suffering, all confusion, all indecisiveness comes from seeing things separate from the Lord. Comes from seeing duality, hot and cold, happiness and distress, honor and dishonor. Icha dvesha samutena. Because of seeing anything apart from the Lord, the mind becomes disturbed. But when one sees everything in terms of the Lord, that there is only God the Supreme Father, and the whole universal creation, spiritual and material, is simply the fusion of his various energies, and all living beings are his parts and parcels. Therefore, there are brothers and sisters. Only when one sees nothing but the Lord in his various forms and permutations and combinations is one free from enmity, is one free from mental disturbance, and does one become free from karma. Many years ago, in Australia, my wife and I joined Krishna Consciousness in Australia, and during our Krishna light shows on Sunday afternoons at 1 o'clock, we're reminiscing about those early days in Australia. And Prabhupada, when he came to Australia, I would arrange his speaking engagements. One of the most striking engagements that he had was at a seminary, a Franciscan seminary called St. Pascal's. I believe that was near Melbourne. So he came and addressed all the seminarians who had their white collars, and he talked about universal religion. Savaipam Samparodharmo. Religion is meant to bring us the love of God. If it doesn't yield that result, then what use is it? One should determine the validity of the religious process by how people are developing love of God. Very nice talk. No one could possibly object to it, much less seminarians, much less followers of St. Francis. And indeed, during the question period, one of the seminaries said, what do you think of St. Francis? Prabhupada said, what is his philosophy? The seminarian said, well, he believed that the birds and the beasts were our brothers and sisters. And Prabhupada closed his eyes and he went deep. There was a pause. Everybody was suspenseful. What's he going to say? He said, that is a real God consciousness. Prabhupada had such a deep appreciation for St. Francis. And those seminarians who were themselves followers of St. Francis intuited that Prabhupada had perhaps even more respect for St. Francis than they did. And there were several eyes that teared up during that interlude. This is a devotee of the Lord. Yashasti Bhaktir Bhagavatiya Kinshana Sarvaganashtata. Embodied in someone fully engaged and committed to devotional service are all the qualities of the demigod. People are generally covered by Rajagun and Tamagun, and they're generally unable to understand the pastimes of Krishna. One description that we find in the Krishna book, and we'll wind up with this scenario this morning, is that in the evening, Krishna returns from the pasturing grounds with his cowherd boyfriends and the cows, and there's so many of them that a dust cloud is raised. And it's also dusk. It's twilight. It's at the juncture when day is transitioning into night. And so it's, it's darkening, it's twilight, there's a dust cloud. But the gopis, those who are waiting to receive Krishna, they're standing on the rooftops. They're looking out at this darkness, which is caused by two different factors. But Krishna is not obscured. They're seeing Krishna, at least within their heart of hearts. They're seeing Krishna within their inner eye, in spite of the haziness and in spite of the dust. And they always see Krishna, even when Krishna is or isn't physically present before their eyes, because of love. Premanjana Churi Santa Sadaiva. For those who are sold out in devotional service, there's never a time when Krishna is not visible. There's nothing that can obscure Krishna from the eyes which have been anointed with the salve of love. There is only Krishna, whether it's light, conditions of light, or whether it's conditions of darkness. Whether it's conditions of happiness or sadness, only Krishna. Honor, dishonor, only Krishna. Sickness, health, only Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Krishna in the morning, Krishna in the afternoon, Krishna in the evening, Krishna at night. It says here, in Vrindavan, in spiritual consciousness, however, although Krishna is covered by the hazy darkness of the dust, the gopis can understand, nevertheless, that within the dust storm is Krishna. Because they are his topmost devotees, they can perceive his hand in everything. Thus, even in the dark or in a lazy storm of dust, devotees can understand what Krishna is doing. The purport of this verse is that under no circumstances is Krishna ever lost to the vision of exalted devotees like the cowherd maidens of Vrindavan. This is the perfected stage of spiritual life, beyond duality. There's only Krishna, nothing but Krishna. Krishna everywhere, Krishna at all times. That is why Prahlad Maharaj, wishing the best for his demoniac father, says, except for the uncontrolled and undisciplined mind, one has no enemy in this world. As soon as the mind becomes absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, there's no enemy, there's no anxiety, there's no fear. And because at that point one not only ceases to do harm to other living beings, but becomes just like our loving Father, a well-wisher of all living beings. A devotee is therefore said to have all good qualities. All the qualities of demigods are embodied in the form of a devotee. So that concludes our discussion for today. Sorry for the part where we got disconnected by the internet and then we had to resume and reconnect. Well, we're certainly appreciative. Veronica Kirtan Hall, Sankirtan Das, thanks for dropping in. So much we are in awe of your dramas and your recordings, incidentally, pepper our radio station. I hope you realize that. Anjali, Kushum, so much appreciative. Veronica again, Prashant, Pavana Gopini, Mahotsava Das Brahmachari, Matthew, Haribol Matthew, Jai, wish you the best always, you and your family members. Anjali, Sundari Priya, Radhisham, Govinda, Thomas, Rupa Manjari, Jimmy, and so on and so forth. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. Sorry for the little technical flaws, but we hope that you consider your time well spent. I know that I did. We'll be back tomorrow, 7:30 Mountain Daylight Time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.